Okay, good morning, everyone. How are you? How is everything going? Let's- Okay, so right now, what we will do today is we will talk about refugees, and we're not right now getting everyone in. Okay, so great, excellent. Okay, we have Azzuddin,
Good
we have
morning, Miss.
Mohammed.
Good morning, Miss May.
Good morning. How are you? How is everything going?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm fine, thank you. So today we're going to talk about refugees, okay, and international relations. We talked about it before. So today I wanted to put on the camera so that we can discuss together about refugees, okay? So let's right now share the video. If you can open up the camera, that's great, okay?
Okay,
And yes,
okay. Just give me 1 minute. Just 1 minute, and
okay, take your time, okay? So it's great to have you guys all here today morning. Before we start the video, let me get the video on. Before we do, I want you guys to tell me about the definition of international relations, the history, and the different traits of it. Okay, so let's try to remember from yesterday and before. If you reviewed, that's great. Okay, about what we talked about yesterday. So can someone tell me who wants to start? Let's get the video right now.
Miss, my internet is slow, and it says, the application says, if I open up the camera, it will stop my voice connection. Can I just leave it like this for today?
Yeah, no problem. Excused. Okay, so if you have an interconnection problem, it's fine. Yes, because the internet is sometimes really slow, so it's fine. Okay, so let us get the share the video. Okay. Okay, what we're going to talk about today is who is a refugee. Okay, so let me share the video with you. Okay, so let's get everyone in. Okay. Okay,
Good
Omar,
morning.
Rida, I can see you. Great. How are you? Good? Excellent. Okay, so let me share the video with you. So why I want
Yes,
each one
Miss.
to tell me one thing about international relations, definition, history, different characteristics, different issues that we talk about in international relations. Okay, so each one thing. Okay, let's see, this is the video. Okay, so can everyone see the screen? I shared right now the video. Who is a refugee? I have it shared with you on Lenovia. We talked about before and we saw it, right? So I want you to tell me before we start the video, one thing about international relations you remember. Definition, history, traits. What else?
International relation is it's like it started with the League of Nations
Excellent job.
uh, when it was made after the First World War to
Good
help
job.
people, to help countries bond together after the war, and it failed because it was still not all countries had the opportunity to take part of it.
Good job.
Then they created the United Nations, which is what we have right now. It worked, and it helped small countries gain some privileges.
Yes.
It helped the countries that were destroyed, demolished after the war, to rise up again, like Germany, for example.
Excellent job. That's really nice. Good job. Number one, the history, the details about League of Nations, the UN, and everything else. That was great. Okay. Excellent, Azzuddin. Keep it up. Yes. What about Omar, Rida, Yusuf, and everyone else? Azzuddin talked to us in full detail. That was great. The history of international relations and how it came about today. I want some definition. Yes, you give us really nice definition. I will put it on Google. And also, I'll post the points as he said right now. Okay, on the okay. So I want someone else to tell me the definition that we talked about yesterday. Let's see if anyone.
Yes, Miss. In here. No?
The definition. Who is this? This is Omar, yes, Omar Rida, tell me
Omar,
definition about a definition of
that
national relations.
it's the study of politics, economics, and law on a global level.
Excellent job. Okay, that's great. Okay, that's a really good definition on a global level. Study of law, politics, economics of international relations or on a global level, relations between countries, organizations, right? And even more. Okay, so issues, topics on a global and worldwide level. That's the key term here. Good job, Omar. That's excellent definition. Okay, so right now,
Okay.
yes. Do you want to add something to that?
لا لا خلاص.
Okay, great. Okay, so right now I'm gonna show you the video for Who is a Refugee. I remember I have it posted for you on Learnovia. I remember when I first put it, some of you guys said that you thought it was kind of racist because they have certain people with a certain color or appearance or how it is with for refugees. However, we talked that not necessarily it's racism because first of all it's from the UN, okay, and it's one of the best it's the number one organization in the world that has to do with topics of refugees, okay. Number two, it doesn't mean that you don't have your own perspectives and everything on. There's no right or wrong here. However, usually we want to have a balance, right, between the information that we obtain, okay, and also being kind of realistic. And at the same time, if you have a certain perspective, we see how much it is. It's is it really important? Is it really like that? Okay, in that sense. Okay, so keep that in mind. Yes, you want to see the sources that is used. You want to see what the source is, right? You want to be scientific. You want not to jump to conclusions or judge on whatever aspect. So, some people may actually say the opposite, that it's not racist, it's perfect, and it's more than perfect. That's also not scientific, right? Okay. So I like that. Okay. And please always give your perspectives and your your viewpoints on different things we'll share, because that's important. And we'll talk about how we have a balanced look on it, a scientific critical thinking look as much as we can, okay? So that we can always have a perspective that is validated, that's supported with facts as much as we can, with sources, with analyzation, okay? And that's what's important. Yes? So obviously here, the the video of the UNHCR, okay, is a video that's very yes, that's very authentic, and it's a good source. Okay, so in that sense, we know that it's actually it's not racist or anything in that sense, but that's not wrong to say. Okay, everyone has their own viewpoints in the end. Yes, Mazen. Yes. Did you want to say something, or someone wanted to say something? Okay, so I'm going to start the video. I want you to tell me to concentrate on what is the refugee, what's the definition of the refugee, what are their characteristics, what is the main
Refugees, I'll tell you.
yes,
Refugees are people who have been kicked out of their land
excellent job,
because due to colonization, حول coloni- إيه؟ colonization صح؟
excellent job. So due to
Due,
colonization, so 1 second,
due to
so they're kicked out of
colonization,
the land, yes,
or due to اسمه ايه war,
good job,
or or ايه تاني or اسمها ايه disease. So like
disease, excellent,
Palestine, it's an example of colonization. Syria is an example of war. Where Chernobyl is an example of disease.
excellent job, Azzuddin. Okay, these are really good points. Azzuddin said number one, the main character of refugee according to Azzuddin is that they're kicked out of their land. Okay. Number two, he said due to colonization, war, or other reasons, right? Now, I would add on to that, obviously, colonization is kind of old. Okay, so colonization is more, there is still in the world, but it's really old, right? Today, it's more war between states, and after the establishment of the United Nations and afterwards with international relations and other organizations of the world, there's no really colonization, it's more war between different states, okay? And between different organizations, different people, cultures, or peace or dialogue. And also there are different, aspects that may lead to refugees in the world, like natural disasters, right? Like, for example, political asylum, okay, which is that they are not politically secure or they're not secure in their land with their politics, okay? Either they are subject to prison or to killing or to infringement on their privacy. Okay, so this is really important. Um, so remember that it's not only war, it's not only past colonizations, or even until today, war or a kind of colonization in the world, there are also more to it. Okay, excellent job, Azadine. Thank you for sharing with us your definition. I want you to keep in mind what Azadine said, yes, and what we talked about right now, and compare it to what they say about refugee, okay? And we'll discuss after we see the video. Okay, so what did they just say about refugee? So I believe one aspect is leaving their homes and their lives behind, right? Now, when we started, we talked about more the what we call historical, okay, historical aspect. Azadine talked about colonization in the past, wars right now, okay? This is very important because usually wars cause refugees, okay? We talked about and we discussed the aspect of um, the aspect, what we call law, history, what causes the issue of refugee. But here, as you can see, they're trying to let you see the other side of the refugee himself or herself or the family itself, okay? They're more giving you an aspect of the human part. So it's not easy, okay? This is really important in international relations to look at the human part of the issue and the topic, okay? So it's not only law, it's not only the international sense or the worldwide sense, there's also the human part, okay? If you don't look at the human part, you won't understand the human rights and research and everything else in the world of international relations, because a lot of topics and issues have to do with the human part of it. Now, obviously, you can go to sociology, psychology, you can go to, the different fields that have to do with human sciences. But here in international relations, the beauty of it is more of the human part. Okay, so you look at, their status, their life status. How do they feel? How is their life right now? Obviously, their life changed drastically negative. Okay, they left a life, which means that the school the family, you know, their home and everything else. And now they're going to another life, which is obviously won't be as nice as the past one. And they know that. Okay. And so this is what's important to know about a refugee. Okay. Do you see? So not only the history and how it comes about and the law and the research, but also the human part of it. Okay. Does anyone want to add on or say something about that? Okay. So can you hear me? Yes. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Just tell me yes if you can hear me. Okay, that means. So can can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to complete the video right now, and I want you to look at the different aspects they're talking about and also the human part of it. Okay, so how do they feel? How is their life and how does it change? Okay, so this is another really important part of refugee international relations talks about. So as we said, the human part, many of them, when they leave due to usually war or natural disaster or something really big in the country, okay, or their life. So sometimes the refugees, the country doesn't have any issue. It's just them, okay? So in that sense, can you hear me? Yes? Okay, so in that sense, there would be a huge issue. Okay, excellent, great, okay. So in that sense, there would be a huge issue in the human part of them, their life, okay? Many times they may lose individuals from their family, okay? So because they may lose individuals from their family, it may be an issue, obviously a big issue. And you can find the human part is very, very sad. There are a lot of books, there are a lot of movies and things in different cultures in the world that has to do with this issue from old times even. So you'll find in the United Nations like UNHCR and other organizations in the world, they when they deal with refugees, they really deal with the human part. So the human part is really important. Do they have missing people in their family? How is their life? How is their lifestyle? Do they go to school, the children? Is it the same? How is it different? How is their lifestyle different here? What are their needs? Okay, so not all, obviously there's food, goods being warm or being comfortable in hot weather, but also things that is important for them as in lifestyle. Okay, many times unfortunately their life changes negative, right? And even accommodating to the new culture, the country they're going to is also another challenge. So in refugee world, you have to think about the human part, not only the law, the history, how it came about, but also the status of the refugees. When we say status, it's not only the research and what you read about, but it's also the human part of it. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay. So concentrate on, yes. Does anyone want to add something? Okay, so let me continue. So think about the human part and also the definition, what is a refugee? And something we talk about your perspective on it. Okay, do you agree, disagree? And do you want to add something on that? Okay, so. Okay, so let's open up the whiteboard. Okay, and let's see the main points from the video and also in general about refugee work. Okay, so let's put it refugees. Okay. So refugees. Number one, you have the historical background, right? Reasons of why the catastrophe happened, okay? Or why there is a status of refugees, okay? And we discussed this with Azzuddin, right? And also we added on to that it differs from situation to situation, okay? And then you have what's the next thing you have? So we said historical background that Azzuddin told us about. What else? What else did we talk about in the video? Let's think about it. So we talked about the historical part, but in the video they talked about something really important that I stressed on. What else? The human part, right? Excellent. Okay, so someone want to say that? The human part.
Miss Mai,
Yes,
sorry, I missed my internet disconnect.
it's okay. Okay, it's okay. So it's fine. If it does good, guess it's gonna just come in as you did. Okay, good job. So the human aspect of it. So it's not only the research, right? The research is great. Okay, so the historical background, reasons of why the catastrophe happens, okay? But also you have the human aspect. How do they feel? How did their life change? Okay, now there are many research that puts light on that and shows you, for example, their unfortunately the economic status goes down, their lifestyle, their needs increases. Not only that, when they go to country, it's their status, what are their needs, you know, what challenges they face, and how do the different organizations deal with it. Okay, that research obviously does help out in the human aspect to know the status of them, their status. Okay, but also you want the human aspect to try to see, you know, try to look in their lives and see how, you know, how it can be better. Okay, or try to you know, sometimes some people that go in this field, they try to put themselves in their shoes, like they say. Okay, so to feel how you know, how they're dealing with everyday life, because many times in this refugee situation we don't understand their needs, right? They may say their needs, but because they're from a different culture, their situation is so different, we can't understand them. Okay, and that's something very important in the refugee world. If you go into the refugee world, even international relations, you'll find that this part is really important because their life is very, very hard. Okay, it's a hard catastrophe for them. It's a catastrophe for the country, for their culture, and for them and the family, obviously. Okay, so the human aspect is really important, especially that you'll find that there are many systems in the world, in the refugee world, in organizations, and also in the human aspect of it. Okay, so many times they lose a family member, which is very, very hard for them. So the process may take for years and they may not find the family member or they may find them. Okay, so it's very, very sad. Many times they lose their homes forever. Okay, many times they they have a kind of very hard life in the country they're living in. They can't accommodate. They don't know how to say the language. They don't understand on the culture. They can't find a job. There's so many reasons, and their needs are not fulfilled. Okay, especially that you'll find many times in this world of refugees so many catastrophes and very, very hard stories. Okay, so keep that in mind. The human aspect is really important, especially that you'll find different organizations, they always try to fulfill that need. If they have whatever need, whatever need they don't have, they try to fulfill it for the refugees. Obviously it's very hard because they're a big number, and each story is a hard story. It's not easy. Okay, especially that in the world there's a system of citizenship, a system of you know um, borders, and also there are laws in the world. Okay, so in between the laws and in between going from country to country, dealing with the refugee status, dealing with administration and everything else, and at the same time trying to fulfill the needs of the refugees and the refugees themselves, trying to fulfill their own needs. Okay, so you'll find that working in that field is it's not that easy. There's so much research done and efforts because it's a very, very hard world. That's why, for example, national relations, you find that it's a different world. Okay, so it's a world by itself. Everything is around it. So the different laws, the different organizations, the different people that work in the world of refugees. You have people from psychologists, sociologists. You have lawmakers. You have international lawyers, right? International relations lawyers and judges and organizations and everything. Okay, research. You have different governments, foreign policies that always work on this issue. Okay, so it's an ongoing issue that never ends, and there are always new solutions, new research, and new efforts from everyone in the world for this issue. Okay, so the human aspect is really important. So that includes the needs of the refugees, um, the needs of the organization that deals with the refugees, right? So you have to make sure that their needs are fulfilled, which are many. Okay, research on that aspect to help solve the different challenges and status of the refugees. Okay. So do you have any, does anyone have any questions on that? Yes, okay. The third aspect that they talked about is obviously um, the reasons of why they leave, okay, and also their status. So reasons of leaving, okay, reasons of leaving country, and status of the refugee in the country, okay? When we say status, what does that mean? So status of refugee. What does that mean when we say status? Their situation, right? So their situation or their you know, their status, their situation, or their position in the country. Okay, so for example, are they accepted in the country by law? Okay, that's the first question, right? That's number one. Number two, okay, are they accommodated in the country? Okay, so let's put it here. So are they accommodated in the country? Do they fit in the culture? Okay, are they accommodated in the country? Do they fit in the culture? So we say fit in, right? Okay. So can someone give me an example of that? A status of the refugee. So we said that, are they accepted? Let's do accepted here. So let's put it here. Are they accepted in the country? Okay. So can someone give me an example of that? Okay. An example, any example of the status of a refugee. So are they accepted in the country? Okay. Are they accommodated in the country? Do they fit in the culture? Fit in. Any example? So I'll give an example. For example, a refugee goes from, let's say, from maybe a refugee from Mexico, for example. Okay, they want to go into the US. Okay, they are on refugee status. So they go into the US, and so their status would be that they're refugees affiliated to the UN. Okay, and so in that sense, they want to have a citizenship, obviously, that's part of accommodating the country, right? They want to have citizenship, or they want to have a status where they have residency, work permit. So they are, by law, they are allowed to be in the country. Okay, so that would be in their status. So their status would change, right? With the help of the refugee, with the help of the UN. Okay, they would help them out to change it to residency and then to citizenship. That would be their objective. Also the work, to find work, to have their family accommodated in the country. So culturally, in all their needs. Okay, so they have work, the children go to school, they're in a good neighborhood, a safe neighborhood for them. They're accepted in society. Okay, they don't feel left out. At the same time, they understand English, so they speak English in the US, right? They learn the English language, they understand the culture around them, and they're successful in the country. Okay, that's part of the status. So the status obviously changes, right? So here, and they may in the end not be refugees. Okay, so in the sense of the status of refugees would go, and so they would become American citizens, or they would have residency, and then afterwards they would work on American citizenship. Okay, so that's an example of the status of the refugees. So they don't their status ends as refugees and they become resident or citizens. That's the objective usually of different organizations for the refugees. They want them to be part of the country, and that's very important. Okay, another example would be, for example, they are accommodated in the country. Okay, so they may have citizenship, residency, but there's an issue that they don't fit in the sense of they're not understanding the changes. Maybe there's a change in the US, maybe there's a new law, okay? And so the new law for maybe their children to enter college is something new, and they're not understanding it because they're from different culture, okay? And they're not understanding how to pass the exam, maybe, okay? They're having issues with it. Or maybe there's a new law in the US with people that were before refugees. There's something that they have to go through, a test or whatever, okay? Or a kind of status they have to have, and so they don't like that, okay? And so they want to change it, right? So this is also important, okay? Or maybe they may have social issues in the sense of um, there may be a conflict maybe in Mexico or in the US Mexican relationships, and they may have problems with that. That also happens. So they would go back to different organizations, so the organization like UN, for example, and then in that sense, you know, their status would change. Okay, so it's very different, and obviously you can see the problems differ. Some problems are you know very important, so need of food, water, drinks, and security. Okay, others no, it's more of citizenship, residency, which is also important because they have to be lawful in the country. They can't be refugees all the time. Others are more that they need to go to school, they need to be accommodated, they have residence and citizenship, but they are in need of accommodation. Okay, so you find that it's very different. Okay, so does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, what do you think? Do you think are these the only factors of the refugee world? What other factors are there? So we talked about what the video discussed and also what we discussed before, okay? So does anyone have any other issues with the refugee world? What do you think? So we talked about the human aspect, the historical, the reasons of leaving country, the status of a refugee in the new country, and after being a refugee. Okay. So right now I'm going to put this on the Novia. Okay, make sure you know these points for the quiz, right? Now the final point is in the international relations world that we talked about. Okay, so for example, the UN, the UNHCR, okay, and all the different organizations. How do you think the refugee world is affected by international relations?
Miss Mai,
Yes.
Miss,
Yes.
1 second, I will be back. Okay.
Okay, so how is the refugee world? Think about it. Also for after tomorrow when we meet up. Okay. Refugee world. How is the refugee world affected by international relations? So we talked about the refugee world, and we talked about it in terms of worldwide, right? Worldwide organizations and in the world as a whole. How is it affected by international relations? So international relations is worldwide relationships between different organizations, governments, and obviously the UN is an example, UNHCR, and different, you know, different huge organizations